As a way of enhancing user experience, a lot of websites are moving from traditional pagination over to infinite scroll, or something similar like a load more functionality. Infinite scroll and load more functionality can really enhance the way people engage with long lists of items, whether that's long lists of articles or items in a directory or products on an e-commerce website. However, infinite scroll and load more can present problems for Googlebot and other search engine robots as they're crawling through your website, because robots aren't able to use that infinite scroll or load more functionality. In this video, let's talk about how you need to set up infinite scroll and load more so that way it works for robots. Before we talk about how Googlebot crawls a page or what you need to do in order to fix infinite scrolling for Googlebot, let's take a step back and talk about how code works. There's, broadly speaking, two kinds of code on a website. There's server-side code and client-side code. Server-side code, as the name suggests, is code that is returned from the server to the browser. The browser doesn't need to do anything else. It simply presents the code that is returned from the server to the person visiting the page, or to the bot visiting the page. Then we have client-side code. With client-side code, the browser needs to modify something about the code. This is where JavaScript comes into play. The browser has to call a JavaScript function, and that call of the JavaScript function changes something about the page. It might add additional content or an additional image to the page. Now, there's a lot of different ways that you can call JavaScript, but JavaScript is called in response to different events. There's lots of different events. We're going to focus on 3 here in this video: load events, click events, and scroll events. Load events happen when the page loads. So after the page finishes loading, an onLoad event is called. And if there's JavaScript on this particular website that has a function associated with an onLoad event, that function will be called by the browser, and the browser will modify the code accordingly in response to those onLoad functions. This creates the onLoad client-side code. Similarly, with a click event, when somebody comes to the website and they click on an item, an onClick event is fired. And if there's a function in JavaScript associated with that onClick event, the browser will execute that function in response to the onClick behavior. And there again, that might change what's appearing in the browser. That might change the code. So now we have a slightly modified version of client-side code that's modified in response to that click event. Scrolling happens the same way. When somebody scrolls down the page, that triggers an onScroll event. And the browser looks and says, oh, there's an onScroll event that's been fired. Is there a function I need to call in response to this onScroll event that's been fired? And if there is, like in the case of infinite scrolling, then the browser calls that function and then modifies the page and the code accordingly. Okay, so we have server-side code, we have client-side code, and client-side code is modified in response to different events that happen in the browser, like load events, click events, and scroll events. Now let's talk about how Googlebot works and other search robots as well. Search robots do not call click or scroll events. Search robots only call load events. So, search robots can easily see server-side code because it's just returned directly from the server to the browser or to the bot. Robots can also see client-side code that's been modified on load. Robots are able to call those onLoad functions and see code that is returned into the browser on load. In most cases, onLoad client-side code is usually pretty reliable. It's not as reliable as server-side code, but it's usually pretty reliable. But what bots will not do, what they will be unable to do, is click on items on a page and trigger those onClick events, and they will be unable to scroll on a page and be able to see those onScroll events. This is why robots are unable to see infinite scroll, and this is why robots are unable to work with things like load more, behaviors that you can program on a website. They simply aren't able to trigger the events necessary to see those types of functionality. So what do? The fix is you have to build a traditional pagination system for bots that exists alongside the infinite scroll. That's right, you have to build the infinite scroll for visitors, and you have to build the pagination system for bots. The first step of building out your paginated series is you want to build out your component pages of the paginated series. Your component pages need to load at distinct URLs, such as /page/2 or $page=2. Each page in the paginated series should contain unique content, a unique set of items in this list. As well, each component page should have a unique title and meta description tag. It's best if each component page is indexable and has a self-referencing canonical. Basically, we want to make sure that each page in the paginated series is a page that bots can crawl and bots can index. And there is an important note here. Because bots can crawl that page, because bots can index that page, bots may end up ranking pages in your paginated series. They might end up ranking page 3 or page 4 in a paginated series. And because they are ranking those pages, people may find those in search results and click to those pages on your website. So you want to make sure that the pages in your paginated series are designed appropriately to work for visitors. After you've built out your component pages, the next step is to link to those pages from the main page and from all pages in the paginated sequence. In other words, you want a link that allows bots to be able to get into this paginated series that you've built. Remember, bots can't click on buttons, so they won't trigger an on-click event, and they won't scroll down a page. So they won't be able to see the infinite scroll, they won't be able to see the load more. But what they can see is a hyperlink and a regular old A tag, and that A tag links over to page 2. So you want to make sure that somewhere on the page, there should be a link to page 2. And then when you go to page 2, there should be a link to page 3. And when you go to page 3, there should be a link to page 4, and so on. These links can be hidden from view with a display none. However, it is best if these are visible links, because potentially people will want to go through a traditional paginated series instead of using your infinite scroll. And this is an upside to building a traditional paginated series alongside the infinite scroll, is that it gives you a way to not only make the scrolling behavior work for bots, but also gives you a way to present other options to the people visiting your website. Some people may not want to use infinite scroll. They may want to go through and click on a particular page. Maybe they've already been through your website and they know that the product they're looking for or the article they're looking for is on page 7 of your list. So they just want to go there and they don't want to have to scroll 7 times down the page to arrive at the thing they're looking for. But you can hide the link if you don't want to present that to visitors. If you have any questions about working with infinite scroll or building a paginated series on your website, please let me know. You can email me at matthew@elementive.com. If you liked this video and want to see more like it, please subscribe. Thanks for watching.